Good day to you, and today the lesson is on philosophy of education. This is the introduction to a series of subtopics which I'll overview today, but we will get in more specifically in each lesson. So let me begin by saying this is the philosophy of education, which means love. Philo means love, Sophie means wisdom of education. So we are talking from the point of view of educating and learning and teaching. So I say the love of wisdom of education, because pure philosophy gets into that, but not a lot, because they're more concerned about dwelling into certain basic assumptions that we made, and they don't get into the learning and teaching process much. Okay, for the definition of our discussion here, teaching briefly means providing information, data, rationales, a source of where it comes from. And learning means, you go to the student now, if I can refer to you as student. Learning means the process of taking this information and trying to do something with it. Plato said learning means from within. It's the learner is the one who's making the process after he receives all this information. So you say, well, I'm a teacher and I teach him how. Well, true, but that doesn't mean he learns. The learner's a different situation here than the teacher. The teacher provides the information, the learner takes it and processes it. And why, if that learner can't process it or has troubles, then the teacher has the obligation of helping him, by building character, by giving him a way to reason to it, by a way of analyzing it, categorizing it. And the learner may never come up with the same thing that another student learner does. He may come up with a different thing. That's why we have creative people. They can take the same information and come out with a different conclusion and they process it differently, and they might even comes out that they'll create something that wasn't even in the basic information. Okay, so those are the basics here. Now, the other topics we'll get into, and which you need to study that, is ontology. Let me briefly define that. Is a study. Logi means a study of. Onto means being. Now you say, well, we're talking about human beings. Yes, but from my point of view, there's more than human beings. Because we have so many. We got 5 billion people saying there are gods, so they're beings. There are angels, so they're beings. So as a teacher, I'm taking the full approach. I don't decide what the being is. I try to figure out how do I present information to that being. Because if the guy said, hey, I got an angel sitting on my shoulder, I'll hire you to teach him. I'll pay you $150 an hour. Well, I'll say my obligation as a teacher is to say, okay, let me try. Let me figure out. I got to figure out how to get to him, how to communicate. So we don't decide being. We figure out what are all the different styles of being, and then we adjust our teaching and presentation to them. The next topic or part that you should study, you don't have to, you can go jump right into education, but epistemology, which means a study of episteme, meaning knowledge. How do you learn? And so that's why knowledge, the study of knowledge. What goes on to get knowledge, Here we say, well, you need the teacher and you need the learner. Because a teacher can stand up and teach to a blank wall, or a learner can go into an empty room. There's not going to be much learning going on, nor will there be much teaching going on. It takes these two to get into this. All right, the next one would be axiology, and that's the values, the study of values. Because after you interact and you discuss this and this, then you'll find that there'll be some values created out of these two. Because if you're talking about teaching an angel, and you say, well, how do I get to him? What's the knowledge here? What do we need? you'll come up with different values than you will if you say, well, I'm teaching a human being over here, or I'm training an animal. The values are going to be different. Okay, then now, the next thing is, these are kind of basic philosophy, because that's what they study. But here's where you get into education. So this part of it is the part that we get into education. We go a little farther than these and say, okay, what's the nature of that learner? You know, can he hear? Can he see? Can he use telepathy? Can he use clairvoyance? So we have to know about that student. And when you're dealing with a young child, that nature is different than when you're teaching a university student, because you know he doesn't even know vocabulary yet when you start out in first grade. So you have to wherever your level is here, you have to know the nature of that student, or that learner, I call it. And then the next thing would be, what is your role then as a teacher? Well, right here, and we'll get into this more in detail, but my role as a teacher is I got to understand these and that at the level of that student. Otherwise, how do I present it? I have to know how he's picking this up, how he's receiving it, before I can start teaching. And then the last thing would be the curriculum. Now, what does that mean? Well, between these two, the interaction is this curriculum. There's got to be some content here. I'm teaching a first grader. You know, you're going to teach him how to write, how to spell, how to say words. So that's the curriculum content. And then in addition to that content, you have to have some things like character building. The teacher has to say things that make that student want to learn and find this as a positive experience. So I call them character building language. And let's see, he would also have to help, because as a teacher, I can get all the information easy. Now I can say, okay, here I fill 47 blackboards and have videos and that. There's the information. But you also have the obligation to, okay, that kid's having problems learning. Well, you say, well, he's autistic, or he's this, or he can't hear, or he can't see, he's got dyslexia. But beyond that, you have to help that student, when he gets all this information, how does he process? How does he categorize? How does he analyze? How does he draw conclusions? So you have that obligation in that curriculum. And it's not just the content mathematics is not just numbers. You've got to present it to the kid and help him figure out, how do you correlate this? You know, and then what are you going to do with it? Okay, I think that's gives an overview of our first session here, and hopefully you'll be interested. And the next topic will be ontology. Thank you. Bye.